Hi, so today I want to talk about my top 10 books of 2024, um, which just happens to be all sci-fi fantasy. I'm just talking about books that are published this year. Um, to be fair, it wouldn't be such a different list even if I included books that were published before, because I mostly read books that are published this year. Um, before the list, I just want to mention a couple of honorable mentions that almost but didn't quite make the list. The first one is Someone You Can Build a Nest In by John Wiswell, standalone romantasy. This is my favorite romantasy basically ever. Um, and I don't really read too much romantasy, to be fair, but yeah, it's really good if you like books about monsters, I guess. Um, and the next honorable mention is Siege of Burning Grass by Primi Mohammed. I like this, but it was just a bit too, I don't know, a bit too like dense, I guess. It's like I liked it, but it was just a bit too dense, I guess, for me. The next one is there are two books by Adrian Tchaikovsky, because he already has one book in the list, but the two books are Service Model and Saturation Point. Service Model is a very funny sci-fi comedy about a robot butler, I guess. Saturation Point is like a shorter book about this group of people going into an area that is very unexplored and potentially dangerous. It reminded me of Stalker, the movie, and also the movie and the book Annihilation. It's that type of story. I really like both, but my favorite Adrian Tchaikovsky book is actually on the list. So yeah. And then we have What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher. I think this was 2024, right? Which is a sequel, I guess, of a horror. Is it a novella? It's pretty short, but yeah, again, a lot of these books, they're just a bit too short. So yeah, and including this last honorable mention, which is The Message by Ta-Nehisi Coates, the only one that is not sci-fi fantasy or even fiction for that matter. I really like this one. It's my favorite nonfiction of the year, which, to be fair, I didn't read that much this year. So yeah, now on to the actual list. Number 10, we have The Book of Bill by Bill Cipher, or Alex Hirsch. This book is a must-read for anyone who has seen Gravity Falls, but it's you have to steer clear of it if you haven't, because you could still enjoy it even if you don't know the story of Gravity Falls, but I think it would lose a lot of meaning. If you've seen Gravity Falls, if you've seen Gravity Falls, then you're definitely gonna wanna read this book. It's amazing, and yeah. Number 9 is Beautyland by, what's the author's name? Marie-Helene Bertino. This is a literary sci-fi in quotes, because you're not even 100% sure if it is sci-fi or if it's just a literary fiction. It's about this girl who is an alien girl but born on Earth, and she is sent there in order to observe humanity and send information about humanity to her boss in outer space. And yeah, it's really funny. It's really insightful about the human condition, and even if you don't like literary fiction and you prefer the more plot-based sci-fi, I think you might still like this one, because it's just written so well and the character is just really charming in a very weird way. But yeah, I really like this one as well, which goes without saying. But yeah, then number 8, we have Rakesfall by Vajra Chandrasekera. So this one is a very weird book, and this one I think is not for everyone. It's for people who really like weird books with really strange way of storytelling. The storytelling here is very unique. It's not like anything I've ever really read before other than the author's previous book, but even then, this is even more ambitious. The author's previous book, which is The Sayings of Bright Doors, I think, is also pretty ambitious, but it was nothing compared to this, which I think is part of the reason why the author's debut is a lot more critically acclaimed, while this is a bit more mixed, because it's difficult to get into, and but if you can do that, it's very much worth the read, I think. Next we have number 7, I think, and it's Bury the Gays by Chuck Tingle. I made a review of this, I think, and this is about a screenwriter who refuses to kill his gay characters, and because of that, his boss basically sends the screenwriters like characters to like scare him off. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. A lot of people say it's horror, but I think it's more sci-fi with horror elements. It's not particularly scary, so if you're looking for scary horror stuff, this is not really it. But this is really interesting sci-fi, I think. And if you like gay characters, then yeah, this is a really good place to start, or to to read, I guess. Number 6, I think. Is it 6? Hold on. Yeah, it is 6. It's Metal from Heaven by August Clarke. So this book is the author's like debut adult book. I think they have written a couple of like middle grade or YA book. I'm not really sure, but he wrote this one as his adult debut, and it's a revenge story about an like overexploited laborer against the ruling class that exploited her. And yeah, it's set in this very interesting fantasy world where there are metal magic, where the magic is basically based on metal, and it's on the cusp of like industrial revolution. So it's a really interesting world, even though it's not explored all that much, and it's never boring. I think the writing is really the star of the show here. The writing plus the messy like relationship dynamics and the queerness reminded me of Gideon the Ninth. So if you're the type of person who like that book, then you should definitely check this one out. And now we get into the top 5. Number 5, we have Toward Eternity by Anton Hirsch. So this book is one of those books that I really loved when I finished reading it, but then I think it started to like go down in terms of my ranking, because I thought it would be top 3 top 3 at least, but it's not. I have forgotten a lot more about this book than I thought I would. Part of it, I think, is because this book is written by a debut author, so the writing might not be perfect, I guess, because he's still a debut author, but it's pretty good nonetheless. A very philosophical sci-fi about humanity and how things like technology and also art can affect humanity and just what humanity means basically. And it has a lot of like AI and stuff like that, and yeah, it's pretty good, even though I don't love it as much as I first did when I first finished reading it, but yeah, it's still pretty good. And now number 4, we have Disquiet Gods by Christopher Ruocchio. So this book is the penultimate book in the Sun Eater series, which booktube has been really loving this series as of late, so I don't really need to like introduce this series because it's already so well known among booktube. But yeah, this is basically a epic sci-fi series. It's not epic fantasy, but it feels like it, even though it's sci-fi. So about this guy Adrian Marlowe, who is supposedly killed a star or something like that, and yeah, and this book is the 5th, I think, book or 6th. It's pretty far into the series already, and there's only one more book left after this. So yeah, I like this, but it did feel like a bit of a build-up for the final book instead of like its own story, which it's not that big of a deal, I guess, but it's still not as good as some of the other books in the series. Like the previous 2 books, I think, were really like excellent. Still, again, this is still really good. That's why it's in my top 5. And then we get to number 3. We have The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. It's about this assistant to a brilliant detective in this fantasy world where there are walls surrounding the sea because there are leviathans that might destroy people. And this assistant and his boss got a really weird murder case where a plant grew inside a person, and this case was also pretty close to the wall, so there's a lot of implications about the wall and the monsters outside of it. So yeah, it's a pretty good like mystery fantasy book. I think if you're a mystery reader and you want to get into sci-fi, this would be a good book to get started. And even for a fantasy reader, even though the fantasy aspect itself might not be like crazy, but it's still pretty well done, and the mystery aspect I think is interesting enough to carry the book on its own. And the characters are also really fun to read, and like the dynamic between the main character and his boss, it's just so fun to read. Okay, we go to number 2 now, which is Alien Clay by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So this is a book about this professor who who is rebelling against a very authoritarian government that rules over him, and because of that he gets sent to this alien planet in order to uncover the aliens and how they basically lived, and what he finds there might not actually be something that his government would like to hear. So this book is about how he handled all those things. So yeah, this is my favorite Adrian Tchaikovsky book, maybe ever, maybe even over like Children of Time, which used to be my favorite. Yeah, this book is just so good because thematically it's really heavy. It has a lot of heavy themes, but it also does not feel boring while exploring those themes, because this book does that by involving all the characters in the discussion of the theme and in the exploration of the theme, which means that we get to see some really amazing character work here, and the writing is it's the usual Tchaikovsky. It's not particularly like fancy, but it's easy to read in the best possible way, and yeah, the plot is really fast-paced, so it's hard to stop reading. And the ending, I think it's actually my favorite ending of the year somehow. It's just so thematically and narratively satisfying in a way that most books don't even aspire to be. So yeah, it's amazing. I think it's the best sci-fi release of the year. And number one, well, it's Wind and Truth by Sanderson. I was gonna make a video review of this a couple of days ago, but it didn't go well, so I didn't publish it. I didn't post the video, but yeah, this book is the final book in the first arc of Stormlight Archive, and there are a lot of, I think it might be a bit divisive, more than I thought at first, but yeah, for me this is just the best book of the year. It's very thick. It's 1,300 something pages, but it reads so fast. It doesn't feel that length at all. The writing it's the worst part of the book. It's subpar at worst and average at best, but it's still, you don't read Sanderson for his prose. You read him for the characters and the plot and the world building, which everything in those aspects delivered. This book delivered in those aspects. And I think what impressed me the most is the fact that this book is so character focused. While there are still a lot of fight scenes, this book has a lot of character moments that the previous books just lacked, and it does all of those so masterfully, and yeah, it's just so good. If you enjoyed Stormlight Archive and you enjoyed the characters, then you should obviously read this, and if you don't enjoy Stormlight Archive, then you're not probably gonna enjoy this one all that much compared to the previous ones, because this is probably the most Sanderson book yet, if you know what I mean. So yeah. So those are my top 10 favorite books of the year so far. Well, so far, I mean, I don't think it's gonna change. I mean, I'm still gonna read a couple of releases from this year, but I don't think they're gonna be this good. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below, whether you agree or disagree, or whether you have even read these books. So yeah, as always, thanks for watching, and yeah, have a really nice day.